found out salvation yet. First of all, we do not see our transgender neighbors as freaks to be despised. Homosexual people, why do they have to advertise their sexuality? I don't go into the bakery and say I'm a straight. Got any straight cakes? But they do that quite often. They want a homosexual cake, and they do ask for a homosexual wedding cake. But good thing we don't make homosexual cakes. We don't make wedding cakes in the first place. Why do you go in and say something like that? But neither should we fail for the culture narrative behind this transgender term. The narrative is rooted in the ancient heresy of Gnost, agnosticism, Gnosticism, with the idea that the real self is separated from who one is embodied. In other words, his body says he's a woman, but his true self is a woman. His body says he's a male, but his mind says he's a woman. If his body says he's a male, he's a male. No matter how you feel on the inside, it's a sin disease. And they believe that the real self is who you really are, not how you look like. So if you look like a man, it may not be that you really are a man. That don't make sense to most of us, does it? If I look like a man, I must be a man. But sometimes because of sin, our hormones get messed up. I don't deny that. Our hormones get messed up on the inside because of sin. And sin nature might say it's throwing different things at you. You know what cancer is? Cancer is when good cells have a rebellion and say, I don't want to do this anymore. Cancer is when good cells go bad. And they fight against the good cells because they want to do something they're not supposed to do. And there are those occasions that our cells, our hormones, go aflux, and people do actually feel like they're not who they are. And they fight with that. They struggle with that. And they commit suicide over that. And they get depressed over that. And they have a struggle with that. As Bruce Jenner said, he's been struggling for many, many years over it. So I'm not denying that. What I'm denying is it's a sin problem. It's a natural sin problem. If my hormones got messed up and I have the desire to watch pornography all the time, or I need to have another date with another woman. What if that gets on my mind and I start thinking that? I realize that if I'm thinking all that stuff, that's a sin, and if I do it, my wife's going to kill me. And so what happens is I have this strong desire to be with another woman. It is an emotional problem. And therefore, I started on TV. I started going through computers and television. Let's say I have this strong urge because of the advertisement I see that I want to drink alcohol. A beer here, a little beer won't kill you. I said this to my son, honey. He said, Dad, can I drink a beer? I said, if you drink one, and he realized he would drink 12. So I'm saying it's not, we all have desires that we shouldn't have. but we don't act on them. And the reason you and I have the ability not to act on them is because we have been forgiven, and when you've been forgiven, the sin has been blocked. And that is, I can say no to sin. The Christian can say no to sin. I can say no, except to ice cream. And that's not true, because I can say no. I can say no to my desire. But a lost person cannot. He fights it. And the old Gnostic heresy is joined with contemporary expressive individualism. In other words, it's individualism. That's what we're saying. I have a right to be an individual, to do what I have a right to act upon how my true self is. And that is really true if you act upon who your real self is. But see, you've got it mixed up. Your true self is not what you feel, it's who you are. Well, I'm a woman. No, you're not. You're a man. No matter how you look at it, you are a man. I don't care how much you try to look like a man, you still are a man if you were born a man. If you have to change, then it is wrong against nature. It is somewhat ironic that gender interviews comes in the same week as Earth Day. Earth Day, of course, reminds us that human desires and human technologies ought to have limits. And just because a corporation has technology power to raise a forest and level a mountain or to dump toxic into the water system is no sign that he should do so. So the common good mean human beings learning to live in a balance and a harmony with nature, not with to dominate it. If indeed God has put me in the body of a man, I should learn to live with it. I should learn to live in the body that God gives me. That is my true self. What is true of natural ecology is true with human ecology. In other words, just because I think I can change, I shouldn't change. For some, that manifests itself in believing that humanity can pollute its own ecology with impurities. In other words, I have a right to interject my body. If I'm a man, I have a right to interject into my body women hormones. And that's what you have to do. You have to inject. If you want to be a woman, start to interject these hormones that's going to try to transform you into what you have not been. For others, it manifests itself by believing that they can transcend the boundaries of the male and female plurality. A biblical view of our place in the universe is quite different. We are not machines to be reprogrammed at will. We were created. I was created to be who I am. I was not created that I can change who I am. So does that mean you can't have a facelift? You know, a tuck here, and a tuck there, and a tuck here, and a tuck there. I don't know. The vision includes a respect for God's nature, His creative order that reflects His wisdom and lordship over the world. God created us male and female. That's God's order. That's what God said. If anything, God created male and female to be male and female. That's God's order. And to do anything different is against God's plan. Our maleness and femaleness is very much a part of that wisdom and lordship. We are born not out of self-effort, but in the pure providence of our Creator. I did not ask my mom, I wanted to be a male when I'm born. Hey Mom, I'm down here in your womb. I've decided that I want to be a girl. Mommy, I want to be a girl. I come out of the womb, oh darn, I'm a male. Mom, you gotta start doing something real quick. Help, I don't want to be a male, I want to be a female. So it gets to be a year old, it gets to be 2 years old. Mommy, I want to be a female, I want to be a female, I want to be a female. Because he doesn't know what that word means. He must have heard it somewhere. And that's how we're treating our new generation, because now in the schools, in the public schools, and on television, it's okay to be who you're not. So they're growing up with this concept that it's okay. You can't make fun of people who have changed their gender preference. We are born, our given gender points us to an even deeper reality, to the unity and complementary of Christ and the church. A rejection of the goodness of those creative realities. Here's the key line is, it is a revolt against God's lordship and against the picture of the gospel that God has embodied His creation. The doctrine of Christology, he uses the illustration of a male and a female. Any transaction against any of that is a rebellion against God's plan. The hope for Bruce Jenner and for others like him is not to alter the body with surgery or to flood their system with hormones. The answer is to realize that all of us were born alienated from what we were created to be. We don't need to fix what happens in our first birth. We need a new birth altogether. Now, what is really sad about this is Bruce Jenner claims to be a Christian and a Republican and a conservative. Because Diane Sawyers asked him, are you a Christian? He says, I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, and I'm a conservative. For the church, this is going to mean both conviction and wisdom. Our transgender neighbors experience real suffering, and we should understand that when a person comes up to you and they're saying to you, I'm really suffering from this idea that I sense that I'm not really a man. Don't, what our first impression is, crack up and laugh. Man, you're just plain stupid and dumb, you idiot. Why don't you go get some drugs? You never. I've learned this a long time ago. I've had people say to me, I'm sitting in the break room at work, and they'll come up to me and say, man, I'm sure glad I'm not like that person over there. She's a Jehovah's Witness. The girl that said that's a Catholic. And I said, why, you idiot. Why, you idiot. Are these kids having trouble today or something or another? These charity's too sweet to them. I put them in an iron claw. But you remember that? Boy, you got mad at me, didn't you? Somebody, anyway. But I watched too much wrestling. It was a real small one. But we cannot allow, when we come up to a person like that, I didn't say to him, why, are you funny? You're Catholic. You're as bad as that Jehovah's Witness. I would have never seen in our church in Altoona 10 or 15, I don't know how many, that became a Christian and they were Catholics. And one lady says, why are you always these Baptist preachers are bad-mouthing Catholics? And I said, have you ever heard me do that? She said, well, no. I have never bad-mouthed a Catholic to a Catholic. Maybe to you I would. But you don't win them by cutting down their religion.
I have a question, Charles.
Okay.
Like, what if you're Baptist and you transfer to Catholic? I have a friend who was Baptist and then she transferred to Catholic.
There are a lot of people that to get married and they were Baptist and became a Catholic. What I'm trying to say is, so what are you saying? Anybody can do that. Doesn't make it right.
I don't know if her husband's Catholic or not. I have no idea.
Most people, it used to be that people said they were Catholics. They were Catholics, but they weren't Christians. Anyway, I hope. But you're right. The point is that a Christian won't do that. But most Catholics say they're Christians. And I said, well, start living like it. I don't care. If you're a Catholic, live like a Christian. Live like a Catholic. Most Catholics don't live like Catholics. Baptist too. Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning for a few moments in this idea. We need to really understand that the answer to the culture and the sexual revolution industry complex can relieve that suffering. We should stand for God's good design, including around what Jesus said has been true from the beginning, that we are created male and female, not a self-willed designation, but as part of God's creative act, Mark chapter 10 and verse 6. And so I pray that you give us wisdom, help us to know your word, help us to express it in a way that is going to be pleasing to you, and we'll give you thanks. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
That's like Bruce Jenner now, he's
He's trying to change it.
But if he should really get saved, and would God eventually